First-hand paranormal stories part 2. One night I had this dream that didn't really make sense. A Halloween-style portly witch is flying around the upstairs on her broom while I'm sailing towards the stairs on a mattress. A cat that I have never seen before darts around me and down the stairs following the witch. The cat was white with a light rust-colored spot or two on its side, tips of the ears and tip of its tail. Now to preface, we have two cats. Alex is a long-haired grey boy with white-tipped front paws and chest, and Earl is a weirdo whose name fit him perfectly. He only had eyebrow and face whiskers on half his face, a bent and crooked bobtail with short, tiger print, black, grey and white fur. The next morning I came downstairs and told my mom the strange dream I had, and I saw her exchange a weird look with her boyfriend. She then told me about how they were laying in bed last night and the cats were going crazy chasing something around the house, so they sat up and noticed a white cat with a rust-colored tail and spots being chased. My mom's boyfriend at the time jumped up thinking, how did a cat get into the house? So he ran to catch it and the cat just disappeared into thin air as he was about to grab it. The cats settled down and they just went to sleep. This is the first time me and my mom made a believer out of a guy who just plain didn't believe in the paranormal. One cold day in early November, my mom's boyfriend was sick of feeling the cold breeze from the basement door directly next to the couch where he always sat. So he went down to the basement with a few cans of expanding foam insulation to try and fill some holes in the fieldstone foundation. I was always too creeped out to try to explore the basement on my own, and my sister refused to even go down there because she's rather tall, so I was pretty excited to finally get more than a quick glance through the open door. I made the excuse that I wanted to learn how to put spray foam to use. Now the basement was about 4.5 feet to the ceiling and dirt, but it looked like someone had started to dig it down a bit. There's even a shovel stuck in whatever dirt had been moved, but nothing looked recent. I watched him plug a few good-size holes where the mortar had crumbled, then he had to go through the house to get to the extra cans in the detached barn. Like an idiot I stood there waiting, and of course I felt watched. My eyes kept wandering to the center of the basement where the one spot had been dug up. I get this feeling that someone had been buried down here at some point in the 150 years since it was built. As soon as I had that thought, behind the one brick support beam was almost pitch black, even with the one light on and a drop light to help find the holes in the foundation. I thought I saw a shadow dart to the back of the basement. With full body goosebumps, I hauled it back upstairs and even lightly pushed past my mom's boyfriend on my way through the basement door. He looked at me puzzled because of how eager I was to help him. I asked him if he was trying to scare me by dipping behind stuff in the basement, and he looks at me like I'm stupid and says, how could it have been him when there is no other entrance to the basement? So he jumps back down the stairs with a flashlight this time while I hold the bag of expanding foam and does a quick sweep to make sure nobody is down there. A bit shaken, he tells me to come back down with the bags so he can quickly get the rest of the holes filled and be done with it. I toss the bag down and sit at the threshold to watch. While finishing up, I noticed he kept looking over his shoulder at the exact spot that I felt watched, and I couldn't help but snicker at the fact that I may have just freaked out a grown man for seemingly no reason. But then why did he look over his shoulder in the same direction I saw the shadow dart? I didn't tell him where I had seen it, and the week we moved in, the basement and Eve's doors kept falling open despite being locked. A few days later, with no mention of the creepy stuff, my mom's boyfriend didn't get rid of the draft coming from the basement. In fact, it was a little more forceful than before. One eerily silent morning I was getting ready for school. My mom and her boyfriend were already at work. I hadn't woken my younger brother up for school yet, and my sister was at her mom's for the school week, so I was basically alone. I dreaded having to wake my brother up because his tiny bedroom was the most creepy and the only original bedroom before the house had a second floor added sometime in the 50s. So I decided to try to do my makeup, hoping my brother didn't wake up needing to use the only bathroom. As soon as I bent forward to apply my eyeliner, I saw this woman with long black hair, in a white nightgown, bend over and look me in the eyes with an extra wide smile from the top of the stairs in the reflection of the mirror. Frozen in fear, I dropped my eye pencil in my makeup box without taking my eyes off the stairs and reached back for the accordion door and closed it as fast as I could. I collapsed in a panic onto the toilet to take some deep breaths, knowing I'd have to leave the bathroom to wake my brother up. Putting my head in my hands, I see a shadow of someone standing on the other side of the very flimsy door. As soon as I was about to stand up, the door started to sway like curtains in the wind very gently. The shadow looked too big to be my younger brother, so I said his name in a whisper, mostly because I was terrified of what might answer me from the other side. No answer. I found my voice and screamed his name, and I heard him groggily say, "What?" from his bedroom on the other side of the bathroom wall, so I look down at the shadow at the bottom of the door and it moves towards the back door and disappears. I then hear my brother saunter around the corner and ask what I needed because maybe I was out of toilet paper. I paused trying to think of what to say to him and just ended up telling him it's time to get ready for school. While slamming open the door, I half expected nobody to be there and for my brother to still be asleep in his room, but thankfully he was still waiting to use the bathroom and he noticed how pale and sweaty I was and kept asking if I was okay. I was definitely not okay, but I lied and told him I poked myself in the eye while doing my makeup and that I thought he was already awake. After almost forgetting to grab my backpack before I headed out for the bus, my brother followed me out and sat on the stoop with his wrap wrapped around him, and when I asked why he wasn't inside where it was warm, he told me that he was scared to be alone because of the nightmare I woke him up from. He said that he didn't remember the dream, but all he knew is that he definitely didn't want to be inside by himself and he wanted to wait for the bus with me at the very least so he didn't have to be alone as long. I hugged him tight and we just sort of felt each other's fear with an exchange of glances, and as the bus rolled up, I told him nothing can hurt him as long as he is covered by his security blanket. He nodded with those puppy dog eyes and slowly turned to go back inside as I climbed onto the bus. After my sister had her baby girl, I took on the responsibility of babysitting so my sister could attend adult education for a few days a week from about 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. My mom would drive her there and wait, so most of the time I was home alone. I'd give my niece her nightly bath, and since she was born in December, I would fill her baby tub and place it about 3 feet from the wood stove where it would be warmer for her, as that was our only source of heat in the house. We would snuggle on the couch and watch Nick Jr. until our moms came back home. Sometimes they would grab something to eat after class, so I would end up putting my niece down for the bed in her crib upstairs. Now I was well educated in the newer rules of how to put a baby safe to sleep and would only cover her up to her ribs with the blanket to be sure she couldn't inadvertently pull it up over her face in her sleep. One night they came back from adult ed, and when my sister went upstairs to check on her baby, she came back down and asked why I had put the blanket on her all the way up over her shoulders. The puzzled look I gave her said it all, and she just told me again how I shouldn't place the blanket so high on her body even if it's extra chilly out. The next day when I walked out of my room and into my sister's room, because I couldn't get downstairs without going through her room, I noticed my niece was taking a nap, so I leaned over her crib and immediately thought, wow, it's weird how my sister gave me a hard time about the placement of the blanket, yet I come out to see the blanket, yet again, pulled up to her shoulders. So after I fixed it, I went downstairs and confronted my sister, who was doing some studying on the couch. She told me that she had left the blanket at her baby's feet because she had the electric heater going in their room, and then proceeded to slink upstairs to check on her. When she came back down, she told me that her baby's blanket was yet again up to her shoulders. We exchanged a wide-eyed look, and the both of us came to the realization that nobody could have tucked her baby in the time it took me to talk to her about it. From then on, my niece took her naps in the middle of the living room in her swing.